G'day legends, out doing my chicken pen. As you can see, digging trenches, hit rock, which is always what you don't want to do when you hit a trench. But anyway, trust you're all well, and wanted to talk today about something which really fell out of the weekend when my brother from another mother, Mr. Justin Kaczynski, mind you, his mother's an amazing woman, by the way, we went and spoke to a bunch of farmers up at Benalla. I just want to take my hat off to Liz, Hayes, Genevieve and Annie. What an incredible team of women who saw an issue and decided to do something about it and brought together a powerhouse event on the weekend. And when I say that, like, you don't just get two federal members of parliament turning up with a state member and a mayor and everything else like that to just a standard event. It's the quality and the power and the motivation of the women was so pure and beautiful, and what was amazing was the epic support by their men. And I think that just says so much to the quality of people. But I wanted to mention something that we talked about in depth, which was identity, and it touched everyone. Like, it wasn't a person in the room, I don't reckon, that didn't get something out of the specific conversation about identity. You look at Justin, 200 games for St Kilda. And then he tells the story about retirement, in other words, being put out to pasture. But, you know, everything crumbles when you're in that form of structured environment where your identity is placed in the environment. Me, 15 or 17 years in the military. Now, I got out of my own terms, sort of. But the point was, you know, who was I outside Major 3805476, James Malcolm Greenshield's ASC? When I put that in the closet, I then lost the structure of who I was. If you're a farmer and do that, then if you're a farmer, doctor, general, educator, it doesn't matter. Whenever the individual puts their identity in something external, then the identity which is internal becomes vulnerable to the external. And, you know, even a beautiful man who I just have so much love for, one of my ex-soldiers, commented on one of my last posts and said that, you know, the identity is in the wound. And it's so true. Such a powerful statement, where a person who is in trauma and it becomes wedded to the trauma, their identity literally is in the trauma. Some of the hardest people I've actually helped are, police are the hardest people I've helped because their identity is so much on the uniform, but Vietnam veterans as well. Because so many of them don't want to let go of post-traumatic stress because it's like a medal in which they had to earn. And I take my hat off to that. Do I see anything wrong with it? No, I actually don't see anything wrong with anything anymore. But the point is, like, I can see why they feel the way they do, especially when our culture is so externalized. We've lost the internal metrics. And I say that as a culture. There's beautiful people that haven't, and you see they're the stable ones, you know. But as a leader particularly, if you identify with that external role particularly, then anything that puts the role in jeopardy means that it will cause because of the attachment, cause a disruption to your ability to actually fulfill that role properly. A great example is doctors. You look at the last 5 years, there was many doctors that feared losing their registration because of governing bodies in which had been corrupted that were putting incredible pressure on them to violate their own codes. And the doctor takes a code because they become a doctor to help, to be a service and to help people heal, which is a truly beautiful thing. But when we identify as a doctor, then we can, and some did, became attached to having to live by the guidelines that they knew were incorrect, that were invalid, were actually immoral. What happens then, obviously, is our identity gets affected because we are now doing substandard things. Our standard has just dropped because of the influence. We would call it control. No, it's not control per se, because we actually did have we had a choice. We could have said no. I actually said no to the military. I was just about to be promoted to lieutenant colonel, and I said no because I'd hit a values incongruence. The military values the profession of arms values which I joined for were different to the ones that the military were actually exhibiting to me and asking me to follow, and I therefore was put into a personal choice. It's not a military choice, it's a personal choice. And I chose to move on to other things in my life. So, which is why, I actually struggle at the moment to identify as anything, because if I identify it, then it's an external attachment to it, and I'm wedded to it in some way, shape or form. There's a lot of, I won't go into other forms of society which are really struggling with this at the moment. I've met over the last quite a few years parents that are wedded to and identified into being a parent. Now, what that means is if the child does anything to invalidate them and in their identity as a parent, it causes internal disruption, which causes a instability in their behaviours as a parent, which could result in controlling actions as a parent, etc., which then will put the relationship in which there is already on the rocks into an even worse situation. So if we identify with identity is internal. A role we fulfill externally is external. If a farmer identifies completely as a farmer, if something in the environment or anything else like this affects that role, and they therefore judge themselves as a failure, that is me as a failure. Not the farmer, not the farm, it's me failing. So therefore what I'm doing is I'm immediately destroying my sense of self. I am now relegating my sense of self to something less than. And that puts a chink in the armour, and that can take us down a very, very rocky road. Hands up, I'd been there, and I had to go there. I had to go into my darkest days because my sense of self, my identity was all external. Until I could come back and bring it all back internal, and to realise that some roles in life I was doing better than others, so therefore I can put energy into actually improving them, then that's cool. But I'm not a failure if I do something wrong in that role. If I don't have a great day as a dad, I'm not a failure. I can do better. So I go, right, where did I go off path? Fix that path, get back online, go back and be the best dad I possibly can. If I'm working with someone and I realise I missed the mark, I wasn't present in that moment or whatever, or didn't give the best presentation, then I can go and I can break that down and go, right, awesome, you've identified that, what do you need to do to fix? Hi Fran, how are you? G'day to you. So the point is, if we identify with anything external, then when that is affected by someone or something out of our control, it puts us in shaky ground. So what do? We firstly become emotionally literate in subconscious programs and emotions that we feel, because they will tell us when we are externalizing and when we need to actually identify the emotions going through, read the message they're saying, and therefore interact with our environment in a more stable, internally balanced place. We need to understand where we've attached ourselves to external things beyond our control, and we need to remove that attachment, or actually look into why first. Go right into it. Don't let it go. Go right into the reason, because it's telling you you're missing something in your life internally. And that's what the external is telling us. And so therefore, when we just take those two things, you can do a plethora of other things, but just take those two things, you'll start to see some magical world. Trust you got something from it. Thanks, Liz, Annie and Genevieve, amazing event. Thanks, Cozzy, for being my brother from another mother and starting the Cozzy and Cheese show. We'll see where that goes. Trust you all got something from it. Big love.